Greetings, Quester. The Meddlesome Meeples present Tome Talk with Richard and Matt.
Welcome to this segment of Tome Talk. Now, in recent weeks, we've talked about historical fiction, we've talked about non-fiction. Now we're bringing it back to science fiction.
Yes.
And Richard's going to talk to us not about this book, but about this book's predecessor, which is Leviathan Wakes by James S.A.Corey.
Yes. So we've
Richard,
had to
tell
have
us about that.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. We've got a stand-in book here, which is Caliban's War, the second one. But yeah, I read Leviathan Wakes while I was away on holiday. So I just had a week to kind of relax and just read this book. It was quite long. I can't remember how many pages, but it just pretty much flew by, this book, because it has such a lot of pace in it, and a lot of action, and it's a while since I've read such a long book that had so many surprising moments that kind of kept you wanting to read the next chapter all the time, even though there's 60 chapters or whatever. So I really enjoyed that book, and I thought I definitely have to talk about that in Tome Talk. But I also thought at the same time, I think my sister would like it, so I passed it on to her when I got back from holiday. So that's why it's not here. It's because it's great and I needed somebody else to read it. So it's not.
And really, Tome Talk is all about helping people to find reading recommendations. It's in the spirit of Tome Talk, isn't it?
It is really, yes. So you may have seen The Expanse on Netflix, and that is what this book series is. So the series itself is called The Expanse. The first book is Leviathan Wakes, and I think pretty much by now they've done series 2 on Netflix, so I think that will be the whole of that first book.
There is a series 3 commissioned, isn't there, as far as I know?
Yeah, as far as I know, yeah. I think that there is, yeah. So, I had watched series 1 by the time I read the book, and, I started reading the book a while after. I think season 2 was about to come out when I read it. But I soon noticed that I'd got to the middle of the book and got to the point where the series 1 ended. So I thought, oh, okay, season 2 is going to be the second half of this book. So, like we said, it's sci-fi. It is fairly hard sci-fi, so there's not much craziness in there. Although there's a lot of weird things that happen, obviously, and like I say, a lot of action and a lot of interesting things. But the science is mostly very real. When they're travelling around in the ships, they are weightless in the ships. There's no gravity plating like in Star Trek or anything weird like that. You are just floating around unless the ship's moving, in which case you get some kind of forces acting on you. And they tend to, when they're flying around in the solar system, rather than say what speed they're going at, they say how much gravity they get from the speed.
How many Gs?
Fake gravity, yeah, how many Gs they're pulling. So if they're going to just kind of go quite leisurely, it would be 0.5 G. Anything over 1 G is getting pretty weird, and there is a certain speed at which they all have to strap in, and the ship actually injects them with drugs to make sure the captain and pilot at least stay awake, and for everybody, make sure they don't get horrible blood clots and die.
I do think that if you're travelling at such a speed that you have to get injections to prevent death and to keep you conscious, I think perhaps we shouldn't be travelling at those speeds.
Yeah, well, this is...
if someone says to me, would you like a car that you can drive at 150 miles an hour safely? I'd go, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
If someone says, would you like a car that you're going to have to inject yourself with drugs to stay alive in? You know what? I'll take a taxi.
Yeah, just go to a more leisurely pace.
Yeah.
So obviously it's only in military type situations where you need to get somewhere before someone else gets somewhere. So that's when they're going to be doing this. And if they're running away from a massive Martian battleship, that kind of thing, obviously having to have an injection is better than getting blasted into radioactive vapour. So.
Well, there are people that would disagree with you.
Well, you just got to weigh priorities, really.
And there are people that would rather die than have a needle.
There are, actually, yeah. So, but if you're the only person on the ship, no, I demand we all die instead of this. Yeah.
I respect your right to refuse the needle.
Yeah. Well, I suppose you just have to get squashed in the chair at that point, wouldn't you, really? So yeah, it is all set within the solar system.
Which is one of the things that's quite unusual about this, isn't it? Because most sci-fi is either on Earth, contained on Earth, or quite a sprawling intergalactic travel type situation.
Like a massive space empire or something. Yeah, but this is when it's said, I don't think it says on the back of this one, but on the back of Leviathan Wakes, it says something like, we've colonised the solar system, but the stars are still out of our reach. And I think that's just a really good way of putting it. So it's mostly about mining civilizations that are in the asteroid belt. Particularly, most of it is set on Civis, which you may know is quite a big asteroid there. Almost a dwarf planet.
Of course who doesn't know that?
Yeah, okay. And then there is some other quite ghastly action that takes place on another one called Eros.
Now, that sounds like somewhere where ghastly things would happen.
Yeah, and actually, as I said, I gave the book to my sister, and she texted me a few days ago and said she's had to put it in the freezer as it's just a Friends reference, obviously.
Goes in the fridge.
Basically, when the books become a bit too harrowing, and she's at the point where they're on this other asteroid Eros, and it gets pretty grim at that point. I'd actually forgotten how grim it got at that point, and I said, "Oh yeah, sorry," but I'm sure she'll get over that, and then.
But don't be put off, readers.
Or, I mean, that's quite a good point actually, but it is like some people like a bit of kind of horror as well. It just depends how sensitive you are and everything. Like I say,
does this come with a trigger warning?
I think it does on. No, on the back it does anyway. Yeah, but no. If you're used to kind of sci-fi and everything, it won't be too bad. Or if you read kind of fantasy and things like that, it's just you never know what's going to be what different people are going to be particularly sensitive to, kind of thing. But a lot of interesting things happen to the main characters, one of which is called Holden, and he is the classic kind of, well, I would say the classic kind of space hero. He is basically the hero of it. He is very strong in his opinions of what's right, and sometimes ends up screwing up the whole of the solar system because of it. It's more of an idealist rather than what's practical. Rather than a pragmatist. The other main character, Miller, is a private investigator. Well, no, he's an actual detective. That's it. But he's kind of got obsessed with this one assignment, so he just seems like a very hard-boiled PI kind of guy who drinks a lot and talks about his ex-wife, that kind of thing. And it's just very interesting to have that kind of...
They didn't cast Nathan Fillion for that role?
No, surprisingly. But no, he would have been way too happy for that. But it's just interesting to have that kind of character in space. That's one of the things I really enjoyed, because obviously I first found out all these things from watching the series, and then in the book obviously it's a bit more detailed.
So did you... Where did you come to this first? Was it through Leviathan Wakes or through the TV series?
The TV series. Yeah, and I saw that on Netflix.
How do you feel that the TV series stacks up with the book? And do you feel that if someone, has watched the TV series, that it's worth them reading the book, or vice versa?
I definitely think it's worth reading the book. Because I know often people will say the book is better, kind of thing. I just think the book the themes are a little bit clearer in the book. That's all I'll say, really. They did really well with the TV programme, I thought. Obviously they had to change a few things to make it visually doable, basically.
You mentioned to me before that one of the things that was different was the way that one of the races, particularly Holden's race...
Oh, no, sorry, it's Miller.
Miller's race.
Yeah, so different. He grew up on Civis, well, in the asteroid belt anyway. So in the TV series, they've got it that he grew up in a bit of gravity, I think. So he's not quite as tall as the belters normally are. So these people are still human, but they grew up in zero gravity. Obviously, they consider themselves to be a completely different culture. But yeah, there are some of these people in the TV series, but obviously they look very strange. I think they've had to use CGI for it, and it would be very weird to have a main character like that. So Miller he just looks like a normal guy, really. He is quite tall.
So what you're saying is that when it comes to depictions of male characters, body image is more accurate, rather than the tall, willowy...
Yeah, I've forgotten what... Yeah. I'm
So
trying to follow that, yeah.
If it was a woman, it would have this totally unrealistic depiction based on the books, but because it's a man, it gets to look normal.
Yeah, maybe. But, no, I think... Actually, coming to think of it, I don't think you could get any actor to look like the Belters are described. I think you would have to do it with weird...
Painfully tall and thin.
Yeah.
You're not a football fan, but Peter Crouch?
Yeah, as one of them, yeah. I mean, there's a point in the book where I think it's where Miller is wondering if Holden's going to punch him or not, and he's kind of thinking, like, I'm like a foot taller than this guy, but he's got like 30 pounds on me, kind of thing. So at that point I thought, how flipping tall and thin is Miller? That's ridiculous. But
and does he want to work for Victoria's Secret?
Yeah, I think you have to watch the series to see how extreme these Belters actually are. But yeah, this is the other thing when I say about the themes being clearer in the book. The book is set almost entirely out in the Belt. There aren't any scenes on Earth or on Mars, which are the main two inner planets that there's tensions between them and the asteroid belt. So you do kind of get a sense of like the belt is kind of disconnected from their origins back on Earth and from all the newfangled stuff on Mars. And yeah, they tend to talk about people having grown up down the well, which is like down the gravity well, and they just can't really understand the point of view of people that have never had their air and water for free as they live in the belt. And yeah, that comes across very clearly in the book. I remember being a little bit confused about what people's motivations were when I was watching the series. So because there were some scenes set on Earth, and it just there's a few characters that are in this book that they have like in Leviathan Wakes in the TV series, so they've kind of mixed it up a little bit, which is fine. And one character that I really liked in Leviathan Wakes was Amos, and he is this engineer who is very competent, doesn't talk much, but you give him, well, he swears a lot actually, but you give him ask him to do something, he'll just do it. Whether it's, can you fix that thing over there, or can you abandon us all and just take that ship away? Like he would just say, "I captain," and just kind of do it. And you kind of like him as you go along, because like he is so reliable and everything. In the book, like he was just kind of like that. In the series, they've got it where he is kind of fiercely loyal to this. I think it's Lieutenant Naomi. So they kind of get the same kind of character, but like in a different way. And I think I think that's kind of good. It's kind of a little bit of a shortcut in the series, I think, but I think that works really well. So the kind of things that end up happening were very unexpected, I thought, in Leviathan Wakes. And with it being such hard sci-fi, I didn't expect there to be quite so many crazy 90-degree turns in the story. So I just think if somebody wanted some hard sci-fi but also kind of epic as well, I think that Leviathan Wakes would be a very good book to go for. So it is a space opera, but as we've said, contained in the not too incredibly distant future.
Yeah.
And I think it does really well at having a sense of what it's like to actually exist in space, because they haven't really civilized it yet. But it's far enough in the future that there is a lot of interesting stuff happening out there. I mean, it's not like just like, well, obviously the Martian is good, but like it's just that's one guy on Mars. But this is like there being civilizations, terrorist organizations, and things all out in the solar system, and really you get an appreciation of how vast it actually is. You tend to think of like, oh, there's so many planets in the solar system. I'm not going to get in the controversy of how many planets. I know that's a sore point for some people.
That's quite touchy for some people.
Yeah.
Hashtag Pluto.
But yeah, just the amazing distances, like where you are having to fly at like 5G speeds for weeks to get from the asteroid belt to the nearest planet. I mean, just thinking of those kind of distances when we're used to watching Star Trek and they just kind of zip between places because they've got warp travel. But like, yeah, it is a very interesting read, and I think people will enjoy, for one thing, the setting, but also the actual story of kind of conspiracy and characters, but all trying to do things that are what is right, but in different ways. One of the things I was going to say about Miller is that
their perception
their perceptions. Right. That's it. So Holden's a very idealist character. Miller is very pragmatic, and that kind of a clash is very interesting, I think. And also they alternate between the chapters alternate between these two characters. So for a while they're in completely different settings, but when they meet up, it's quite interesting because like there'll be a scene that's from Holden's point of view, and then maybe halfway through a conversation it kind of changes chapter, and then you get the second half of it from Miller's point of view, and you're thinking like, what's this little guy on about? Like,
it's quite interesting when things like
that kind of things happen. So I thought it was quite interesting writing. So I am looking forward to reading not only Caliban's War, but the other. I kind of assumed it was a trilogy, but actually there are a lot of these books. I'm looking forward to taking my time with them, really, and just enjoying this kind of universe. I say universe, this solar system they've invented, and I'll be interested if they actually do get to any other stars or anything. We've done enough books, so maybe.
So there we are. Richard's recommending this one. James S.A.Corey, Leviathan Wakes. Leviathan hits the snooze button.
Farewell, Quester. To find out about other productions by the Meddlesome Meeples, then check out our channel or rendezvous with us at meddlesomemeeples.com. Until next time, Quester, farewell and keep thine axe sharp.